If you're a student, you will have undoubtedly come across a time where you've had to memorize something. Whether it was French vocabulary, dates for the history test, or chemical formulas. It's the truth that memorizing things are hard, and yet they seem to be the basis of everything, especially as a student. Because most education systems, wherever in the world you're watching this right now, rely heavily on memorization, and that's just the truth. And memorization isn't just reading something again and again until you remember it. Do you ever wonder why the reason is that you remember funny moments in the past, your phone number, and certain numbers better than others? How can we apply this to studying so that we can 15 times, 20 times our memorization potential? Stick around to the end to see an example of how I memorize anything quickly and easily. So the first step to memorizing anything is to visualize it. Humans remember things best as an image. As you know, in my previous video, I talked about learner types, but if I say the word orange, what comes into your mind? Either the fruit or the color comes into your mind, right? Not the actual letters of orange. And so what to do to memorize things is to link an image to it. For example, when I used to learn Japanese, the easiest way to learn hiragana was to make it an image like this. And so whenever I think of that hiragana, I don't think of the hiragana, I think of the image. This might all seem kind of wishy-washy, as it was to me at first, but it really works. When I learned to solve the Rubik's Cube blindfolded, the method you use is that each corner and edge has a letter, like this. And then you make pairs of them to swap, and then you memorize a story out of these letters. So after you memorize each of the pairs you need to swap, for example, S, X, E, F, G, L, A, T, P, R, E, S, and I, D. You make a story out of these two letters. For example, sexy elf girl attacked pirates and escaped to island. And remember, things to do with humor, action, weirdness, and sex stick best in our mind, so form your stories around this. And the reason that this works so well is that it's for you. When you see those two particular letters, you think of something that's different to everyone else, but it just works for you. For example, the word sulfur is green for me because it's like a dangerous chemical, and in cartoons, dangerous chemicals are always green. And then the second step is structure. So now you have all these images of things that you want to remember, but they're all just there, kind of messed up, mixed up, jumbled up. And there are many ways to link all these images together. Stories, mnemonics, alliterations, rhymes, and stories. And these all stick best in our heads. I still say Betty eats carrots and Uncle sucks eggs when I write the word because in year 1, this is how I was taught to remember the spelling of because. And it stuck, and I still chant my French verb endings that I learned in year 7. And there are so many structure ways you can do it. Some people put an image on each of their knuckles so that as they go, they could remember it in the specific order they need to. Or some people visualize a memory palace, which is a place, preferably that you're familiar with, that you associate these images with. And this is all complicated and their own separate topics, so I recommend watching a video if it sounds interesting to you. Another key part of structures is to chunk things together. Instead of learning 120 different things, if you make them into groups of 3, you only have 40 things to remember. When you remember phone numbers, you memorize them in chunks like this, instead of doing it all at once. So do that for your information, group things up and make a story out of it. And the third step is of course repetition. There's no way to avoid this, but there's ways that you can do this effectively more than others. The best way to do repetition for me are flashcards or box methods, because all of these use multiple methods that boost memory, because they're grouped together into specific cards or boxes and attach a visual string to the information. Check out this video if you want to learn more. Put images and connections you made in step 1 and 2 onto flashcards to make the most of this whole memorization technique. I'm going to walk through the thought process that I use to memorize, so I'm not going to go too in depth into biology, but just try and follow along the way I think and how you could be implementing this too. So, as you can see, there are 5 enzymes and I need to memorize what they're used for, where they're released, their substrate, and their products. That's 25 things I need to remember individually. First, I'll chunk some stuff together. From the table, we can see that enzymes and substrates formed are almost exactly the same, so we don't actually have to memorize them separately. They're all just one. And now for each row, I can make an image. For example, the first row, carbohydrates, made in the mouth, released from the salivary glands, starch, and glucose. So then we have this string of 5 words: carbohydrates, mouth, salivary gland, starch, and glucose. and I can link these all in one image. For example, the chocolate in my mouth made me salivate SG. And this might sound stupid, but now I have an image of chocolate in my mouth making me salivate SG, because carbohydrates makes me think of chocolate, and it's in my mouth and salivating. It's a funny and kind of crazy image, but it's what I think of when I see these words. So now I have this one image, and now I'll do these for the rest. Protease stomach wall protein amino acids. Professional stomach bodybuilder eats protein and amino acids. And I'll have an image of a big bellied bodybuilder eating protein and amino acids. And the next one, carbohydrates, small intestines, pancreas, carbohydrates and simple sugars. The small children went into the pan and turned to sugar. Protease, small intestines, pancreas, protein, amino acids. The small pros had their PP lost in acid. Lipase, small intestines, pancreas, lipids and fatty acids. The small lips hit the fatty acids with a pan. And now I put each icon or drawing on a flashcard, and now you can memorize the story. And some people like to go a step further. They link all 5 images into one single story so that it flows. But in this case, I don't need to know how all of these work together. I just need to memorize them separately. So now I have 5 individual images, and you can see how I made them. And make them as weird as you want. Remember, making something funny, weird, action-packed, and to do with sex stick best. I hope you could see my thought process, and now you know how to memorize effectively.
지금 어디로 가는 건지